Let's focus in on Burundi. It's reportedly in the middle of a constitutional crisis. Social media has been blocked, radio stations have been closed, and protests have been declared illegal. Now, protests were sparked by the decision of the current incumbent president, Pierre Nkurunziza, to stand in the country's upcoming election in June. If he succeeds, this will be his third presidential term. The president has been in power since the end of the Burundian civil war in 2005. Joining us now is Dr. Kealeboga Maphunye. He's from the Department of Political Sciences at UNISA. It's good to have you on the program. Thanks so much for being our guest on Morning Live.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. I know that you're not only here in your capacity of UNISA, but you're also representing another organization. Please just tell us all about that.
Actually, Leanne, I'm with the Whip Holds Brigadier BAM Research Chair in Electoral Democracy at UNISA.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very, very much for clarifying that for us here on the program. Now, let's get down to the issue at hand here. The United States has voiced its disappointment over what it calls his disregard of the Arusha Agreement. Tell us briefly, what was actually decided about the decision that was taken in Arusha?
The decision that was taken at Arusha, Leanne, in short, was a compromise that there should be, this power-sharing agreement, and that, the incoming government, the CNDD-FDD, the Council for the Defense of Democracy and the Forces for the Defense of Democracy, would govern, knowing that there are term limits and that, the president is obviously subject to the rule of law and the democratization that the country was expected to undertake following the civil war that you have just alluded to earlier.
Yeah. All right. So other than the Arusha agreements, what does the Constitution say about this?
The Constitution is very clear. It has got term limits that the president cannot serve much more than two term limits. But now it seems that the governing party and its supporters are using an excuse, more like a technical, excuse, if you like, whereby they are saying that actually when the president was elected the last time, he was elected by parliament and not by the citizens, and therefore that enables him to run for a third term. But clearly, I mean, he's the same person. If you use that technicality, to us as people who are observing these things, you look at what the Constitution says, and it is the very same person who has been in power since the truce which came about as a result of the end of the civil war. So it would appear that that would obviously be flying in the face of the African Union Charter on Elections, Democracy and Governance, which also indicates that the constitutional, the removal of a president must be constitutionally. In other words, unconstitutional removal of, a government is not tolerated in Africa by the African Union.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about his tenure, because that really is what's of all importance here. How has his tenure been? Has Burundi stabilized since his reign?
Overall, Leanne, Burundi has stabilized over the years, ever since he took over. We will remember that this is a very volatile region. Not only Burundi itself, we're talking about Rwanda, we're talking about the DRC. Most of these people who have been running away from Bujumbura, where this instability has been happening, protests happening, are actually running away to the neighboring countries of Burundi, Rwanda. And so overall, he and his party have tried to stabilize Burundi and bring about the changes that are expected. Of course, the opposition would claim that the opposite has been happening, arguing that there has been repression, there's been suppression of the opposition, and as you have just heard in your clip, that protests are not seen kindly. And in fact, the president was on air just a few days ago, indicating that they are going to take tough action against the protesters. So one would see that it has been a mixed bag, really, of the way he has governed the country.
All right. Now, his supporters say that his first presidency should not count since it actually came through a parliamentary process. Should it matter whether he was installed by parliament or not?
I think it should matter, Leanne, but in this case, normally the rule of law applies and has to be our recourse. And the Constitution the way it's supposed to be interpreted. One would have to go to the courts. A few days ago, there was mention of the Constitutional Court of Burundi, which would, hopefully today or sometime this week, give a ruling as to what the situation is. But of course, the opposition is crying foul, saying that even that court itself has got supporters of the governing party, the CNDD-FDD, and therefore they do not expect much impartiality and fairness out of that court.
Yeah. All right. Now, I mean, these riots are said to be the most violent since the end of the civil war. Would this see Burundi potentially go down the route of a civil war again?
One would not want to see the country degenerating into that state of chaos as was seen during the time of the Civil War. But like I've mentioned, being in a very volatile region where ethnic tensions such as have been seen not only in Burundi itself but even in the neighboring countries in the Great Lakes region, one would not expect that there could be peace in the run-up to elections. Obviously, this does not augur well for elections because this is supposed to be 2 months before the election in June. And if in the pre-election period we have such instability, such violence, one would not be looking forward to having an election that will be quite peaceful and that will reflect the wishes of the people. But it is only our hope. We can only hope that by the time when the election is held in June, that the situation has stabilized.
Yeah. All right. Now, why is it such a difficult thing for leaders, except probably Western democracy, to actually vacate positions?
The African state, Leanne, is very fragile. The African state is experiencing serious challenges, especially because it is an African state that is characterized by a neo-colonial arrangement. And what you see in Burundi and in the Great Lakes region and in the rest of Africa is a situation where parties come in after independence, they take over, but then elite forces hijack the state, and then what they would like to do is now to line their pockets and just, see or use the state as a mechanism for amassing wealth as well as for, spreading patronage with their networks. And so it makes it difficult. We have a very serious challenge of leadership in Africa. And unfortunately, some leaders think that they should stay in power forever. We know a situation whereby in Nigeria, for instance, the former president Olusegun Obasanjo, when he tried to have a third term, and of course that one did not succeed. But in the neighboring Cameroon, that has succeeded. President Paul Biya has been in power since 1982. He has managed to, change the constitution so that he can, there will not be any term limits. Similarly, this has happened also in Uganda. So we have a very serious challenge about leadership in Africa.
All right. Well, let's leave it there for now. Thank you so very, very much for joining us on the program. Dr. Kealeboga J. Maphunye is from the Department of Political Sciences at UNISA under the Wiphold Brigalia Baum partnership there. So thank you for his views always here on the program.